Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take all the heavy lifting our team does, all the articles, the economic data, the internal notes, and we boil it all down for you.
Right. We give you the essential, actionable stuff you need to know, and fast.
And today we're tackling a really specific goal. It's one that's getting more and more popular, too. Planning for retirement in Latin America.
Exactly. And we're moving past that, that vague dream of moving somewhere warm.
Yeah, the postcard version.
We're focusing squarely on the practical side of things.
Yeah.
What you actually need to do for, say, a 2026 plan.
That's it. So if you're that person, the curious learner who just needs someone to cut through all the noise online, this deep dive is for you. It's your blueprint.
Our whole mission today is to synthesize these, well, sometimes conflicting views on what it really takes. The money, the paperwork, the actual quality of life.
To give you a real, applicable starting point.
And, we can get right to the bottom line on affordability. Because the team's research was surprisingly consistent on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It points to a specific financial threshold you need to hit for that, that richer, less stressful life everyone's chasing.
Okay, so this is the crucial number, the one that makes it feel real, not just a dream. So based on all that synthesis of costs and living standards, what's the target? What's the number for reliable passive income?
The sweet spot, and this is based on the team analyzing multiple cost of living sources, is a passive income portfolio that generates an average of about $1,500 a month.
$1,500.
Plus or minus $200. So that stable $1,300, $1,700 range, It gives you incredible leverage. It totally transforms your purchasing power in the places we're about to talk about.
That level of specificity it's invaluable. But okay, before we go any further, while that number gives us financial clarity, we have to address the legal landscape.
Yes.
Moving internationally, it has inherent risks, and we need to be really, really clear about our role here.
Absolutely crucial. So for everyone listening, please pay close attention to this part.
Please do.
Nothing in this deep dive is financial advice, nor is it legal or medical advice. We're analyzing the research from the team. That's it. We are not responsible for any event or risk or loss you might take on.
Right.
Whether you're visiting, moving, or investing in these countries, you, the listener, are 100% responsible for doing your own due diligence, your own research.
So this is for education.
Purely for education, for inspiration, and for entertainment. That's it.
Okay. With that necessary comprehensive context set, let's get back to the plan. Let's define who this is really for. We're not talking to someone who's, thinking about retiring in 20 years.
No, not at all. We're talking to the planners. Well, this is useful for anyone curious. The guide the team put together is really designed for people aged, say, 40 and over.
40 and up.
People who are actively planning to make this move to Latin America within the next few years. That's why we're focusing on the 2026 horizon. It means we need current, specific data on, well, everything.
Got it. So we're talking to people who are serious. So when the team sifted through all those guides, all the financial reports, they must have identified some non-negotiables.
They did.
What were the key practical things that have to be looked at together for a plan like this to even be considered feasible?
Well, the team's research was really comprehensive. They drew from so many sources to get different perspectives, and they distilled it down to 5 essential pillars.
Okay.
5 things a potential retiree has to analyze, but not in a vacuum. They have to be looked at together.
What are they?
First, cost of living. That's the obvious one. Second, access to quality health care. Third, personal safety. Fourth, the visa options available specifically to retirees. And fifth, the overall lifestyle quality.
That list makes sense.
Yeah.
But just telling someone, hey, go research these 5 things, that feels a bit like, passing the buck.
Right.
What was the synthesis? Where's the aha moment from the team's research? How do these things actually translate from data points into a workable plan?
The synthesis is what keeps you from falling into the trap of only looking at cost. The aha moment is seeing how these 5 pillars interact.
I see.
For example, a country might have a ridiculously low cost of living, which looks great on paper. But if its public healthcare system is, let's say, inadequate for chronic conditions.
Which is a huge concern for this age group.
A huge concern. Then you have to buy expensive private or international insurance. And suddenly, that expense might completely wipe out the savings from the low cost of living. Your actual financial need could jump way above that $1,500 target.
So the guide is meant to stop you from making that kind of mistake.
Exactly.
Huh.
It offers concrete comparisons so you don't get overwhelmed. You see exactly how, say, a high score in one area can make up for a lower score in another.
It's like building a balanced scorecard for your life. Okay,
Oh,
let's dive into the specifics. Let's start with the money, cost of living.
right. And this is where that $1,500 plus or minus 200 figure really comes to life. The team did a ton of comparative work here.
Because the variance is huge, I'd imagine.
It's dramatic, even within Latin America. But that income level, it gives you so much leverage pretty much across the board. The team compiled data for several popular spots, using sources like Numbeo to draw some contrasts.
Okay, give us those examples. Let's see the contrast.
So we specifically compiled detailed cost of living data for a few key countries. We're talking about major cities and some secondary cities in Colombia, Mexico, Costa Rica, Argentina, and Uruguay.
And the contrast is stark.
Oh, it's stark. In some of the high-cost urban centers, like
Yeah.
I think the nicest parts of Montevideo in Uruguay or central Buenos Aires, that $1,500 might mean you have to budget carefully.
But it's still doable.
It's still feasible for a basic but comfortable life.
And what happens if you step outside of those big capital cities?
That's the game changer. If you look at secondary cities like Medellin in Colombia or maybe Mérida in Mexico, the purchasing power of that same $1,500 is transformative. It's not just covering your rent and food. It allows for eating out frequently affordable travel within the country. It often covers the cost of a housekeeper, things that retirees in, say, the U.S. or Europe just couldn't afford.
Yeah.
You're leveraging the local economy.
Okay, this is where it gets really crucial for me, the intangibles.
Mm-hmm.
Safety and healthcare. These are always the biggest mental hurdles for anyone thinking about a move like this. So how did the team move beyond just generic advice?
They require a very personal assessment, that's true, but the research gave specific points on where to focus that assessment. Let's start with healthcare.
All right.
The research consistently showed that for the 40-plus demographic, especially if you're planning for potential chronic care,
Yeah.
just relying on public systems is, well, it's risky.
Right.
Many public systems are decent for primary care, but for specialized procedures like advanced heart treatments or oncology, you could be looking at long wait times. Or they're only reliably available in private, international standard hospitals in the big cities.
So the real finding isn't just healthcare is good or bad. It's that private healthcare is basically non-negotiable for serious retirement planning.
Precisely. The research really hammers home the need to investigate local private insurance versus international expat insurance. The team found, for instance, that while private hospitals in Medellin or San Jose, Costa Rica are world-class, getting access to a specific specialist might require connections or a big upfront payment.
A finding that completely changes how you budget for insurance.
It radically changes the calculation, and it confirms why a solid private policy is essential, even if it eats into that $1,500 budget a bit.
All right, let's shift to safety. This is another major concern, and just telling a listener assess the safety feels unsatisfying.
It is.
What specific red flags or green lights did the research uncover?
This is where you have to combine the big global indexes with, on-the-ground expat reports. And the key finding is that safety is hyperlocal.
Hyperlocal.
Yes. The sources were very consistent in differentiating between types of crime. Touristy areas often have higher rates of petty crime pickpocketing, bag snatching. That stuff is generally predictable, and you can manage it by being vigilant.
But that's not what people are usually afraid of.
No. And the risk of violent crime, the team found, often drops significantly in established expat communities and smaller, stable towns that are known for their retiree populations.
So the actionable advice is to focus on neighborhoods that have already built up an infrastructure around senior expats.
You got it. That significantly reduces the generalized safety risks compared to, say, just moving into an unvetted downtown commercial area.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The sources often mention places like the Lake Chapala area in Mexico or certain neighborhoods in Panama City. The established expat communities there mean that community vigilance and reliable services are just much, much higher. Your research has to be at the neighborhood level, not the country level.
And finally, the bureaucracy, the paperwork, visa options. This is a huge hurdle for that 2026 planner.
It is. But the team's research confirms that retiree visa routes are widely available across Latin America. They have different names, like the pensionado or rentista visa.
And how does our financial target connect to this?
It connects directly. That $1,500 plus or minus $200 income is often right in the sweet spot for meeting the minimum monthly income requirements for countries like Colombia, Panama, and Costa Rica.
What are the main bureaucratic headaches the research flagged? What should you prepare for right now?
The two biggest hurdles are consistency and documentation. It all requires foresight. Many countries want you to prove that reliable passive income. That means they might ask for 12, even 24 months of consistent bank statements, apostille documents, certified
But the
translations.
pain point is time.
The pain point is definitely time. The research showed visa processing can vary wildly. 2 months on the fast end, over 8 months on the slow end. This is not something you can do last minute. You have to start gathering your certified financial history now.
That's a huge piece of advice. Start the paperwork now, years out. Okay, so we've covered the 5 key countries for that cost comparison: Colombia, Mexico, Costa Rica, Argentina, Uruguay. But the sources also mention other specific ideas. Was there one place that's really positioned itself as the gold standard for being senior friendly?
Yes. If we tie this back to the idea of established infrastructure, Panama was highlighted specifically. It's kind of the benchmark.
Panama.
There was a July 2025 UPI report the team analyzed, and it focused on Panama and U.S. retirees, putting it in the context of the Global Retirement Index. Panama has just successfully built an entire system for expat retirees.
With the pensionado program, right?
That's the famous one. It offers huge discounts on travel, entertainment, all kinds of services for resident retirees. It has a solid reputation, and it's definitely one of the top country ideas the team suggested exploring. It's a high visibility, maybe lower risk entry point compared to some of the more volatile economies we mentioned.
So if you want established ease of use, you look at Panama. But if you want to maximize the purchasing power of that $1,500, you look harder at the secondary cities in Colombia and Mexico.
That is the essential trade-off the research points to. Maximum ease often comes with a bit of a price premium. Maximum purchasing power requires a bit more adventurous planning and more local research on your part.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive. So for you, the learner, we've really covered the essential points to take your retirement planning from just a vague idea to a defined action plan for 2026.
Let's just summarize the core takeaways really quick. We established the target audience is, well, anyone, but especially those 40 and over planning for 2026. And the financial benchmark is clear.
Right.
Aim for a stable passive income that's generating $1,500 plus or minus $200 per month.
And we learned that successful planning depends on breaking down those 5 essential pillars: cost of living, healthcare, safety, visas, and lifestyle, using the team's specific findings. We saw how that income number lets you live a richer life in places like Colombia, Mexico, Costa Rica, Argentina, and Uruguay, with Panama being a strong contender because of its expat infrastructure.
What's really fascinating is seeing how the knowledge is out there, but it's scattered. By pulling it all together, we turn a general goal into something actionable. But knowledge is only valuable when you understand it and, apply it.
So what does this all mean for the next step in your journey? We've talked about balancing budget versus quality of life, data versus on-the-ground experience. So let me leave you with one last provocative thought to chew on as you continue your research.
This really raises the central question that every single planner has to face.
Exactly. Beyond that definitive budget of $1,500 plus or minus $200, how much weight should you actually place on a country's ranking in a global safety index, which can be general, sometimes out of date, versus its specific cultural and lifestyle offerings?
Things like access to that specialized private health care or those established expat social networks we talked about.
Especially when you're planning for a transition as monumental, as personal as retirement.
It's the ultimate balance, isn't it? The broad, objective data versus the nuanced, subjective quality of your own lived experience. Keep researching, keep planning, and we'll see you next time for the deep dive.